What you got for us tonight, Big 12? Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Yeah, here we go. For 2 straight weeks, we have been delivering program rankings per conference here at the Voice of College Football. And this is the week that you get to respond. Sure, you could have left comments to all the videos, the ACC, the Big 10, the SEC, the Pac-12 even. Mark, why did you do a Pac-12 video? There is no more Pac-12. Perfect time to do the Pac-12. All the numbers are in the books. They're all finalized in regards to those programs in the Pac-12 performing against each other in the Pac-12. Perfect time to put it all to rest in the Pac-12. So check out the video over on the main channel. So we delivered all the videos, including, yes, the Big 12. And now is the week to hear from you directly. Comments and questions there in the live chat. And then also you can give me a call. The link is in the comment section as well. So we've got the link in the chat. And just in case you missed our delivery of the all-time program rankings in the Big 12, we're going to review it right now with all of you. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And we intentionally, unlike the ACC and unlike the Pac-12, and also the SEC on Wednesday night and the Big 10 on Thursday night, and then all the rankings put together on Friday night, I intentionally put this live stream on the Big 12 channel. So being supported by the West Virginia channel. So we appreciate Joey and the fine folks at the West Virginia channel for allowing us to simulcast there on the West Virginia channel as well. But to make a point about what we've got going on here at the Big 12 channel. So please subscribe on the Big 12 channel here at the Voice of College Football, because if I put it over on the main channel, it would be on the main channel along with everything else. But wanted to draw some folks over to the Big 12 channel. And as you can see, if you look over the videos that have been posted over the last several months, we have heard from Oklahoma State, TCU, and all across the conference. So we will continue to do that, and we will do even more concerning Big 12 football, a conference in flux. But we're going to look backward, but we're also going to look forward. So this is a historic ranking. This is all about the results in the past, of course. This is not a projection toward the future. This is about what this conference has been, which, of course, has been since 1996, the Big 12. And for much of that time, it's been extremely stable as a conference, extremely stable in that heartland of America, and then picked up West Virginia, plucked back TCU. That was in a conference, of course, in the Southwest Conference with a lot of those schools before. And things go in cycles, of course, in college football. So many of these teams that were torn apart and thrown into separate conferences and moved away from each other then reunite, as we see now coming back around this year with Colorado back in the Big 12 after the 12-season hiatus in the now defunct Pac-12. So it all comes around. But since 1996, this has been one tough, fortified conference. Now, not necessarily super, super tough in recent years, but for the bulk of this 1996 run, all the way up until this past season, it's been a strong, strong national conference for most of that time. Because in 1996, you had another major player in the works, and that was Nebraska. So consider, for you younger folks that were not around at the time and maybe have not read your history books, 1996, basically the Southwest Conference, most of those members, not all, most of those members, Arkansas had left, for example, but most of those members from the Southwest Conference, a defunct Southwest Conference, and the Big 8 merged. They merged together and formed a really strong Big 12 conference with, guess how many teams? Yeah, they actually got it right from the start. 12 teams in the Big 12. 12 teams in the Big 12 in 1996, and it stayed that way for a long time. It stayed that way until 2012. Technically, okay, a year before that, Nebraska left for greener pastures in the Big 10, more money. Has it turned out well for Nebraska? Maybe financially on the field? No, it's not turned out well for Nebraska. Not at all. They have had a rough ride in the Big Ten. And then at that same time, of course, TCU and also West Virginia came into the conference, and out went Colorado. At the same time, Nebraska left for the Big Ten, Colorado out to the Pac-12. And there were much rumblings and a lot of a disturbance, much like what we've seen in the last few years, but a lot of it didn't come to fruition, meaning that there was a time there when Texas was close to going to the Pac-12, and there were some other rumblings that could have really been the demise of the Big 12. However, the Big 12 stabilized, and again, probably overall stayed about the same, adding TCU and West Virginia, losing Nebraska, who historically, of course, is much better than those programs, and during its stay in the Big 12 had been dominant at times, to the point where Nebraska, even in decline, played in the final 2 Big 12 championship games and almost won both of them against the 2 stalwarts in the conference, Oklahoma and Texas. Enter Colorado. Originally Colorado, and Colorado had its decent runs in the Big 12, appeared in many championship games. They left, and again, TCU came in. There was no conference championship game for a time. And then that conference championship game came back into vogue in, I believe, 2017. But what we've seen out of the Big 12 since Nebraska left and since the downturn of Texas, what we've seen is Oklahoma has dominated this conference unlike any conference has been dominated. And I'm looking at Alabama and I'm looking at Ohio State. Even though those 2 programs have been better than Oklahoma this century, neither one, check out the numbers, check out the records, check out the championships. No program has dominated its conference since the time that the conference has been assembled, like Oklahoma has dominated the Big 12. It's ridiculous. Now, I made the statement. Now, these are 2 different. This is where the rankings get a bit confused and have to be explained because there's been so much movement across college football. So when we look at a program like Utah and look at their all-time winning percentage, we've got to take that into consideration that, okay, can we really compare Utah's all-time winning percentage to Iowa State, West Virginia, Kansas State, Oklahoma, Texas, and other schools in the Big 12? No. Because Utah just started playing big boy football just over 10 years ago. And so all due respect to Utah, Louisville, some others, you've not played big boy football for a long time. Therefore, your winning percentage is inflated all time. So those type of considerations have to be made. And in the case of comparing Oklahoma against the 2 giants that I just mentioned, they've been better, but Oklahoma has been better than everybody else. Now, if you look at the all-time program accomplishments, Oklahoma's clearly number 1, Texas is clearly number 2, and then we've got a smattering of all sorts of teams. But since the Big 12 was assembled in 1996, Oklahoma's clearly been number 1. Has Texas been number 2? That's a debate. That's a debate because Kansas State, I believe, and we'll get to the numbers, Kansas State, I believe, has as many conference championships as Texas does. Now, Texas has reached a college football playoff, the only school other than Oklahoma and TCU during this 10-year playoff era, and also went to 2 BCS championship games, winning 1. Nobody else from the Big 12 has done that. So, of course, again, early on, it was Nebraska winning 2 national championships as a member of the Big 12, 1 as a Big 8 member near the end of that run in 1994. So Nebraska has 2 national championships credited to the Big 12. And then Oklahoma is the 2000 championship. And then Texas in 2005, and nobody since then. And as we spring this conversation forward, this is a very historical conversation about the past, but we can definitely spring it forward, especially when we look at the likes of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State. And it has been the case in other videos and other live streams following up these videos. People have asked me or made the comment or the criticism, Mark, why are you including so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so? Because either they're out of the conference now, or they just joined the conference and their numbers don't apply. More information is always good, folks. So yes, Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in these rankings. That makes sense. They have compiled all of their history post 1996. Since the origin of the Big 12, they have compiled all their numbers in the Big 12. So it's a final send-off for Oklahoma and Texas to see how their numbers stacked up in the Big 12 against everybody else in the Big 12. Again, that only makes sense. Now, understand the Big 12 is only 28 years old. So most of these numbers are compiled from the beginning of time. And I am not putting any weight on recency bias. I've been accused of that, but it's not true because the point system gives just as much weight to a win in 1910 than it does a win in 1923 or 2023 and 1923. And just as much weight to national championships, for as bogus as they might have been in 1910, as last year's national championship. They all count the same. There's a difference here. I am going to show you the performance of the teams in the Big 12 in the last 10 years, in the 21st century, since 1970, which of course predates the Big 12. But that doesn't mean I put them in the points system. That is just fun to talk about, fun to look at, and fun to discuss. How dominant have these programs been? How strong? How successful? How poor since 1970, since 2000, and during the college football playoff era? We're going to look at those numbers. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. If you got any comments or questions, we will certainly check out the super chats to see if you've got anything there, which we do from our buddy Joey. Almost every night on the West Virginia channel, Joey's got some kind of show brewing at 7 or 8 o'clock. So please lock in on the West Virginia channel. Joey says, if we all pitch in, Mark could get some cool LED lights to go around those helmets. Well, I kind of already do. There they are. Do you see them down there? Okay. Let's see if they show up this way. There's some purple. Does that complement it better? Whatever that is. I'm just hitting buttons. Yeah. I thought red was a Big 12 color. So anyway, there we go. So yes, we always appreciate the contributions. Yes, let's get this Big 12 channel to 1,000 subs. That is a key number. We appreciate it. So please subscribe. All right, let's delve into the numbers, shall we? Whoa, what's all that? So people are going crazy. Believe me, my eyes were cross-eyed by the time I got done with all these, because this just wasn't one conference. This was all the conferences. So let me blow this up. And I put these in order of win percentage. All right, so here we go. Again, yeah, wow. I know a lot of people watching probably don't want to hear this, but Oklahoma has been the best program in the history of this conference. And so that 725 winning percentage isn't even since this conference started. It's much, much better than that since the Big 12 started in 1996. Way better than that. That's an all-time winning percentage at 725, Texas 702. You could probably win a lot of bets by asking someone the third best winning percentage in the history of the Big 12 in regards to current Big 12 schools and their all-time winning percentages. Now, again, we can go through all sorts of arguments about they were in the Pac-12 And even prior to 1978, they were not even in the Pac-12. They were basically playing Group of Five football. Yes, Arizona State's win percentage is inflated by playing outside the Power Five until 1978. No question about that. Same with Utah. Same with BYU. Same with UCF. Although, as we go through these numbers, I'm going to give UCF a ton of credit. They just started playing football in 1997. Actually, I was at one of the very first UCF football games. They had a kid playing quarterback by the name of Culpepper. And they were playing at Mississippi State, and we had heard, okay, this is a new football program. I think this was their first season. And they came to Mississippi State and put a bit of a scare into Mississippi State, and Dante Culpepper had a big day, and I was impressed. But UCF, yes, playing in Group of Five football, but still just starting to play. So they're going to be in last place. Actually, there's a couple of categories where UCF puts some of these Big 12 schools to shame. I'm not talking about winning percentage, but I'm talking about total compilation of numbers, because when you think about it, they should be dead last in everything that does not involve a percentage. They should be dead last. There's no way that Iowa State, having played football for almost 100 years prior to UCF, should be behind them in anything. But it's kind of funny. They are in some categories, and a couple other schools. So you see the winning percentages there, but still Arizona State, they've been playing big boy football for 45 years, and they are number 3 in the conference at 599 all time. But you can drop a blanket over Arizona State, Utah, West Virginia, and even BYU and Colorado to a large extent between 569 and 599. That's all extremely close, of course. Now, if we look at the bottom of the conference, and people got all upset with me this week or last week when I posted some comments on Twitter, and I posted a poll at one point concerning the worst program in the history of college football, and I included Iowa State and Kansas State in that poll, and people were going nuts. Very ignorant people that don't know anything about college football history were going nuts. So maybe this will clarify something. So Kansas State certainly has a long way to go, but man, if we were doing the same thing 15 years ago, if we were doing this same exercise 30 years ago, 1994, Kansas State would be at the bottom by far. But of course, we know that Bill Snyder is one of the greatest of all time, and what he did in Manhattan was remarkable. And Chris Kleiman's still winning now. So that 461 winning percentage has been bolstered a ton in the last 30 years, and it's still awful. If in any way you're questioning the winning percentages, thinking, well, the winning percentages have to add up to 50%. No, that's not the case, because these teams play a lot of games against Group of Five and FCS schools. That's why there are 90% of the teams in the Power Five have winning percentages all time over 50%. And there's only a few schools. Let's see. I think the number is, we've got Kansas State, Iowa State, Vanderbilt, Wake, Northwestern, Rutgers, Indiana, Oregon State. They're the only schools that come to mind. I think that's the list of schools under 50% winning percentage all time. So you got the winning percentage. I'll explain the points later. You've got the AP points. So what is that, Mark? Well, the AP poll started in 1936. And at the end of each season, there are points awarded for your position in the AP final ranking. So if you finish number 1 in the country, you get 25 points. Number 2 gets you 24 points. Number 3 receives 23 points. And on down the line to number 25 gets 1 point. Is that system perfect? Of course not. There are all sorts of schools. Minnesota comes to mind. Minnesota would be the perfect example that I can come up with. Minnesota in 2021 and 2022 finished 9-4 both seasons. They had as good a records and better records than some teams in the final top 25. And they got 0 points because they didn't finish ranked. There are typically somewhere around 10 teams outside the top 25 at the end of the year that you could clearly argue are as good as the teams in the bottom of the top 25. So it's not a perfect system. I believe every team in the country should be ranked. Every team. Why does it stop at 25? Why? Is there something magical about that? Is there something magical about the number 25? No, it used to be 25, used to be 10, it's been 20. It's just a number. It's an arbitrary number. So it means nothing. So those AP poll points are connected to the rankings, which let's put that in better perspective, because to me, those are just a bunch of numbers that are obviously Oklahoma is going to be number 1. Texas is going to be number 2. And who's number 3? Number 3 is TCU. And then I'm surprised West Virginia is not higher, actually. Colorado's number 4, and on down the line. What is going to put this into better perspective is this. So look at the number way down on the right side there. On the right side, what you have there, this probably makes a whole lot more sense and is more understandable to everyone. The first number in that column is the number of times that school finished in the top 25 or in the final rankings. They used to be 20 or 10. 62 times Oklahoma's finished in the top 25. Texas, 51 times. Who's number 3? TCU, 21 times. West Virginia, 20. Those are the number of times ranked in the final poll. That second number is the number of times ranked in the top 10. And the third number is top 5. So clearly Oklahoma, 62 times ranked, 45 times in the top 10, 33 times in the top 5, dominant. Texas is clearly number 2. And then after that, Arizona State's doing pretty well. West Virginia's doing really well. TCU, Oklahoma State has really been nothing until Mike Gundy for the most part. Baylor, 16 times ranked, but only once in the top 5, 3 times in the top 10. TCU's finished in the top 10 11 times. And down at the bottom, consider this. Those figures by Iowa State. I'm sorry, Iowa State fans. I know you're proud of Matt Campbell, and he's done a remarkable job and feel good about your program, but my goodness, Iowa State has only finished in the top 25 3 times. That's crazy. That is crazy. And Kansas State, again, it's Bill Snyder doing a remarkable job for Kansas State football. And we saw the all-time winning percentages. If we take the winning percentages during these different eras, then that points out something as well. So that's the college football playoff era, 2014 through 23. Oklahoma's the best by far. Then, what do we got? Oklahoma State. They've got the second best record. They've won 89 games. Utah's close. Of course, they did all that in the Pac-12. Kansas State, where are they? There they are, 76 and 51. TCU, better than K-State by 5 games, 81 and 76. West Virginia's got a decent record. Again, BYU, not really going to compare BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston and those teams, UCF, because they played in the American Conference or elsewhere. And so UCF's been really good, but that was in the American Conference. And Colorado's been terrible during this era. And Kansas, of course, 29-90. 29-90. And consider last year they went 9-4, and the year before that they went 7-6, 6-7, 6-7. So they are 15-11 the last 2 years. So they were 14-79. Woo! That's awful. Okay. Lance Leipold, God bless you. You're good. This is the 21st century. Since 2001, Oklahoma is the best by 40 games over Texas. TCU's right there with Texas, but again, can't really compare or say TCU's been better than Texas or as good as Texas because they played Group of 5 football before 2012. Who else has been good? Of course, Utah. West Virginia's been strong. BYU's been strong. They have the best records along with OK State. Kansas State's been decent. 172 and 118. Kansas, horrible. Colorado, horrible. And so those are the numbers in the 21st century. This list over here is since 1970. And Oklahoma has a 62-game win total above Texas. Texas is number 2. See a pattern here? Oklahoma way number 1, Texas way number 2. Then it's a dogfight. BYU, again, not making the comparison because had they played in the Big 12, their record would not be that good. But they were successful as an independent. West Virginia's had a good run, 408 and 253 is a nice winning percentage. And if you want to see the winning percentages, check out the video. We do a more exhaustive dive through the winning percentages and other metrics here. Although when we get done breaking down all these columns, I'm going to play the video behind me and you're going to see the numbers in a more digestible form. Oklahoma State, of course, they've made all their hay under Les Miles and Mike Gundy. Baylor's an odd program. They're 28 games under 500. They've had really nice highs, a lot of lows. Kansas is the worst. And there we see UCF. Of course, they just started playing football in 1997. I haven't mentioned the team, Texas Tech, yet. 57-60 the last 10 years, so they've been eh. But since 2001, Mike Leach, 116 and 119. Okay. Decent. 356 and 281. Spike Dykes, Mike Leach, good teams, never great, never finished. Look at this number out of Texas Tech. They've never finished in the top 10 in America. Never. All right. If we take it all the way back here, let's pick it back up with bowl wins. So here we've got bowl wins, and we've got Oklahoma's number 1 with Texas with 31. Oklahoma State's got 21 bowl wins. That's a nice figure considering that they weren't very good for a long, long time. And then there's a lot of teams with 15 or 17, 16, right in that range. TCU's at 18, Utah, West Virginia, BYU, and Texas Tech have 17. Although if we go over here to major bowl wins, we see another distinction by Texas Tech. Texas Tech has pretty much in the last 40 years lived in mediocrity. They have reached bowl games and won their share with 17 bowl wins, but they've never been to a major bowl game. Never won one, for sure. I'm trying to track to see if they did go to the Cotton Bowl in the mid-90s and lost to USC by 1 million points. Oklahoma with 23 major bowl wins, Texas with 19. Then who's on the radar after that? Wow. It drops into oblivion. TCU 7. major bowl wins. 7. Oklahoma State, 4. The last time Oklahoma State, well, they beat Notre Dame a couple years ago in the Fiesta Bowl. And Oklahoma State also won the Fiesta Bowl against Stanford after that 2011 season. All right. Conference championships. Let's see. Are you going to be able to see this? Conference championships. Guess who? Oklahoma. That's more conference championships than anybody in the country. 50. Texas 31. And again, we're crossing conferences here. And a lot of people have pointed this out to me. They didn't need to point it out to me. I understand what's going on here. So we're going to look at conference championships because schools should be credited for winning conference championships in their own conferences. However, we will look at just Big 12 championships as well. Oklahoma 50, Texas 31. Colorado's won 26 conference championships. Now, Big 8, and many of those came pre-1970. TCU, again, group of 5, WAC, Conference USA type titles, can't be compared to the likes of these. West Virginia, we've got to understand they were an independent, so that comes into play as well. The independent status really hurts programs like Florida State, Miami, Penn State, West Virginia, Syracuse, and others because they didn't play in a conference. Can't win a conference if you're not in a conference. So West Virginia's done well to win 15 conference championships, none in the Big 12, as we will see here. When these schools entered the Big 12, it's pretty clear cut. We don't really need to go through this too exhaustively because the core of the Big 12 started in 1996. They had the additions we talked about in 2012 and the loss of Nebraska and Colorado, and then the additions last season and now in 2024. Okay, conference titles in the Big 12. 28 seasons in the Big 12, folks. 28. Sorry you can't see the team name with that. 28 seasons in the Big 12. 1996 through 2023. Oklahoma's won 14 championships in 28 years. Now, there are some shared championships, not many, because there was almost always a conference championship game. And there we got Texas with 4. Got a couple schools down at the bottom with 3. That would be Baylor and Kansas State. They have 3 championships each. But think about it. It goes from 14 to 4, 3, 3. And then everybody else, nothing. Nothing. Who's got 1? Is that, Colorado won a Big 12 championship game. They upset Texas. Everybody else, nothing. 0. Zeros. And then you've got Kansas and you've got Iowa State and Texas Tech and somebody else there with the distinction of being 0 for 28. Kansas, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and yes, 0 for 28. Oklahoma State won 1 conference championship. And then you've got a bunch of schools that are 0 for 12, like West Virginia, etc. National championships. Oklahoma claims 9. This is a category I'm going to vet through a little bit later. So right now, I'm just taking Winsopedia's word for it. But if you know what I do here at the Voice of College Football, and many of you maybe on the Big 12 channel maybe don't watch on a regular basis or on the West Virginia channel, I don't. I think for myself, and I don't take just what some of these national championships are completely illogical. And most of them need to be added to. So I'm going to rewrite history to a certain extent. Not much, and it's going to be logical. I'm not generally stripping away championships. I'm adding to them. 83, for example. and 1993. There are teams that come to mind those 2 years that earned national championships just as much as the team that was awarded the national championship. 1994, same thing. Okay, Oklahoma 9, Texas 4. There's a couple national championships there for TCU and Oklahoma State. All right, NFL draft picks. There we go. We finally got our schools back on the board there. If you look to the right, Oklahoma's got a good 50-point lead, 50-player lead on Texas for NFL draft selections. Colorado's up there. Colorado does pretty well all time. A little bit better than I expected. They're number 3 in the conference all time in draft selections. And this would be actually all the categories from here on out are comparable and really can't be too greatly argued to be skewed or off in any way, because they're basically awards that are voted on nationally. And especially the NFL, they're selecting players from every conference, and they've got no conference bias per se. And so Arizona State having 255 NFL draft selections is legit. It's not like they racked up 255 wins against a bunch of slops in the group of 5. This is NFL draft selections. West Virginia, 1 tick under 200. Arizona's up there at 187. You see the 215 number from TCU. Baylor's at 249. So Baylor's number 4 in the conference. And then we've got our first round selections. Pretty much the same deal. Oklahoma 51, Texas 48. Close race there. And then it drops way off to Arizona State's 26. A couple other teams with over 20. Colorado, Oklahoma State, Baylor. Iowa State has 2 first-round picks all time. 2. All-Americans. Now, the one thing I got to say, even though these are not objective criteria, these are subjective, past the NFL draft. Award winners, Heisman winners, All-Americans, all that, subjective, sports writers voting. The one thing I will say about it that backs it up is that it goes right in line with the programs that win. It's almost tiered exactly to a T. So I got to give them a lot of credit for that overall. Oklahoma's got the most All-Americans. Texas is number 2, and there's a big drop-off. Then there's another huge drop-off, and Colorado's got 32. And then you see all the other numbers with TCU with 19, Arizona State 18, and you will see a more organized lineup of this if you watch the video. It's over on the main channel. Heisman winners, Oklahoma is number 2 in a group with Ohio State, Notre Dame, behind USC's 8. Thank you, Reggie Bush. Texas has 2. Nobody else has more than 1. And then these award winners. So the Heisman gets all the hype. However, there are other positions. And I know that the Heisman Trophy is not tied to a position, but let's understand, it's basically tied to a position. It's a quarterback award. Post 1995, 2000. Before that, it was a running back award. So let's look at all the other award winners and the best players at those positions. The Biletnikoff, the Mackey, the Walker, the Remington, Lombardi, Nagurski, Butkus, all of them. The Thorpe, the Guy, the Groza, all of them. And that's what we do there. Oklahoma's got the most awards at 24, Texas at 17, and then back off the cliff to Arizona with 8. BYU's got 9. And Kansas and Iowa State have yet to have any major award winner. None. And I know UCF as well, but they've been playing football since 1997. So there it is. And then we see a point total that I will need to explain. Where is it? There it is. So there's our total points. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Oklahoma's number 1. Texas is number 2. You could all see that. And then after that, it's a jumble between about 1,400 and 1,650-ish. Colorado's number 3 at 1,675. Arizona State's close, 1,661. TCU 1,618. West Virginia's fairly close, 1,579. So they're number 5. And I can explain the point system if you would like. And this is not a perfect system. It's a damn good one, but it's not perfect because that doesn't exist. So if you come across a better system, please let me know. Especially if it's been devised by one person. Please let me know. There are a few things in here that I would love to include. Believe me, I would love to include strength of schedule, but that's not happening unless you can find me a site that has strength of schedule for the history of college football. If you can do that, I will gladly add that because I think that's important. Conference games winning percentage. I'd like to add that. And those are really the two things that come to mind. And then maybe some things could be weighted a little differently. And for a few people that have gotten crazy over the player recognition, it's minuscule in the system. It's minuscule. I gave, for example, I'm giving 5 points to national champions, and I'm giving a half point to every NFL draft selection. So that's 1/10 of the point totals. All right, we're taking your calls here at the Voice of College Football. We've got the link in the chat, and we got Joey here.
Hey, what's going on, Mark?
Not too much. How you doing?
Doing good, man. I enjoyed that. Now, I was wondering where your point system was going to land after I seen some of these numbers because the 4 newcomers, Colorado especially, and they've got some pretty good numbers. Colorado, I was looking through there, man. I never remembered them being so good, but I do remember a little times, here and there they were good, but like being consistent, it didn't seem like to me Colorado was that consistent winning.
And they've been bad for the last 15 years.
Yeah, I know it. I know. I mean, I can remember a time them being good. It just didn't seem like it was very often.
And yeah, it wasn't that long in our lifetimes or
Right.
in our older lifetimes. Yeah.
But so your program rankings there. Let me look at this. West Virginia 1579 total point. Who was I'm trying to look at the
yeah, sorry that's all jumbled out of order, but that's because I ordered the winning percentages. I could try to
it's all right. So don't worry about that.
I'm just let me do this. You're able to see this much better if I go to the video. Bam.
All right. Now, Paxton's saying in the chat that Joey, the Kansas State number shocked him. Yeah. Well, Kansas State was a dumpster fire before Bill Snyder.
Oh, man.
I'm talking Kansas 2 and 3 years ago. That was Kansas State every single year for 20 years.
Yeah. Who's making that comment? I can't see the chat right this second.
Paxton.
Yeah. So Paxton, listen to this. Before Bill Snyder, I'm going to go through records before Bill Snyder. Okay. You ready for this? 1 and 10, 1 and 9, 3 and 8, 6 and 6, 5 and 6, 4 and 6, 2 and 7, 8 and 4, 4 and 5, 3 and 8, 1 and 10, 3 and 7, 6 and 5, 7 and 5, 4 and 7, 7 and 4, 4 and 7, 4 and 7, 5 and 6, 1 and 9, 9 and 2, 5 and 5, 2 and 7, 2 and 8, 6-4, 5-5, 6-3, 7-3, 7-2. They had a nice little run there in the late 50s. But yeah, I've counted up years where for like 12 or 15 years they were winning 20% of their games.
Yeah, they were absolutely horrible. Bill Snyder, he came in and turned that program completely around. I mean, turned it on its head and started winning some games, and they've just been a consistent program since then. They were consistently losing before they started consistently winning under Bill Snyder. You know, now he had a couple of bad years where he was rebuilding there at the beginning, but by the time he retired, man, they were very good. So yeah, I like your numbers here. The 1579 TCU 16-18, and I completely expected that. But you know, TCU I think played a little bit weaker schedule than West Virginia did back, you know, before the Big 12.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if you were going to tell me to put this into context, and I was trying to as we went along, because it's not context, it's just numbers put together, and certain things I can't really fix because it would just take too long. If somebody wants to promise me 1 million views on these videos that are going to make thousands of dollars, then yeah, I'll come up with a really complex system, because it would elevate West Virginia for one basic reason. Before 2012, TCU was playing a group of 5 schedule. So their winning percentage has to be put into light. And Arizona State before 1978, now 1978, that was 45 years ago. So they have been playing big boy football for 45 years. But before that, they were not either. So yeah, that has to be taken into consideration. And Utah, it's funny because Utah is not showing up on very highly on any of this. And they were just off the map, awful. And then when they got really good, they were playing group of 5 football. So they've really only been a factor for 15 or 20 years.
I've been saying, and I don't know how true this is, but I feel like Utah came into the Pac-12 at the exact right time. It was kind of down. There wasn't no teams that were really doing real well. You know, I mean, they had their spats, but then like for the last several years, though, before last year, the Pac-12 was really down, right? I mean, there wasn't a lot of noise out of the Pac-12, and Utah, you know, pretty much had their way with them. I'm wondering though, you know, is Utah going to come into a Big 12 conference now that's pretty strong, top to bottom? You know, you look at West Virginia finished in 4th last year in the conference, getting picked to finish 14th. You know, they were looking at a lot of things, obviously, but you know, that just tells you that from top to bottom, this conference, or what you think of this conference, it's pretty damn tough.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the 4 newcomers from the group of 5. I'm talking about, you know, the Kansas States and even Iowa State. You play Iowa State at Iowa State. You're in Ames, Iowa. You know, you're probably going to walk out of there with a loss. That's a tough place to play. I like the Iowa State atmosphere. It's a really tough place to play. So, you know, I'm wondering when you go to Morgantown or you go to Manhattan. I mean, you know, imagine going to Manhattan in late November playing football. That's what you know. That's what it's going to be. We're coming to Morgantown in late November playing football. Wait till Utah comes to Morgantown late November playing football. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but I think there's going to be a different atmosphere in the Big 12 than they had in the Pac-12. You know, you go to a USC game, unless USC's setting the world on fire, there's nobody there. UCLA's the same way.
Yeah.
What UCLA?
Well, that's going to change this year.
So right, but now you look at it. You look at the Big 12. Every venue you go to is sold out. It's packed. They're screaming. They're yelling. You know, well, not for the most part. For the most part, they're selling out. All right. I'm not saying every team's doing it every year, but the atmosphere is there. You're getting a lot more than 20,000 fans in the stand. You know, like a UCLA game, and so you know you're coming into a different venue, a different type of atmosphere. You know, And even with Texas and Oklahoma leaving and how tough it was to play in Texas, it's just as tough, if not tougher, to play in Stillwater. So,
well, I don't know. I've not been to Stillwater or Austin for a game, but I'd much rather play Oklahoma State than Texas. That's for damn sure.
yeah. Well, I tell you, and you can ask Mountaineer fans. You could ask Paxton. He's a Texas fan, so you could ask Paxton. Um, West Virginia never worried about playing Texas. It was Oklahoma State that always beat us, and
Sure.
shouldn't have. You know, times when they shouldn't have won, they beat us.
Yeah.
Texas, we didn't have a lot. I mean, we shared. I think we split 6-6 with Texas. You know, which is pretty good against Texas, right?
Sure.
So we split 6-6. And the funny thing about that is we couldn't beat Texas at home, and they couldn't beat us in Texas. It was like a weird thing, you know.
The Big 12 has done its very best to recover from. They weren't going to recover from and make up the quality of losing those two programs. There weren't two programs out there to be able to do that. So there's no question that the conference is significantly weaker. But they did the best they could. I can't come up with a scenario in which they could have done any better than getting a really, really, really strong Pac-12 school and 3 that have potential out of the Pac-12. And then the year before doing what they did about getting basically the 4 best group of 5 schools. That's as good as they could have done.
Yeah. Paxton's saying Will Greer's 2-point conversion still haunts him. But so somebody said something up here. I was gonna talk about it for a second. He said something about Cincinnati. Who was that? That was Sports Talk with Austin. He said Cincinnati not too bad according to the list. I guess the Big East success helped them, and American Conference. I think the American Conference probably helped them a lot.
Sure.
Cincinnati had a little bit of success in the Big East, but you know I think they're 20 and they're 3-20 against West Virginia. So that tells you how much success they had in the Big East. So, but
Against
anyway,
West Virginia.
Against West Virginia. Right, that's just against West Virginia. I know they didn't do too well against Louisville either, and they didn't do too well against Pitt. But since they couldn't beat those teams then, and I'm afraid they're going to struggle now too. You know, there's just that everybody that's good around there goes to Ohio State or Michigan. Let's face it, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think any schools are getting that level of player out of there. Yeah, they're going to go to Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, but
Cincinnati's going to struggle on the recruiting field because they got to recruit against West Virginia and Pitt and Penn State, and you know that's just really hard. You know, you're talking about 3 programs that are established and have great facilities, great stadiums, great facilities. Well, not Pitt. Pitt don't have. Pitt ain't crap, but the facilities at Penn State, the facilities at West Virginia are two of the best in the country. And so, you know, you're recruiting against that in Cincinnati. That's tough. That's a hard recruit. So I wish Cincinnati all the success. I'd love for it to become a great rivalry. I'd love for Cincinnati to have success again like they had in the Big East for a couple of years because it did. It started becoming a good rivalry. But you know, unfortunately, it fell off when we left for the Big 12. And I think Cincinnati got put in a dumpster there. You know, they were a decent enough program. I thought that somebody could have took them. You know, at that point, they were probably just as good as just as good as West Virginia in ways, and just as good as Louisville. So
yeah, it is interesting.
all right, Mark. I will get out of here and see if anybody else wants to come in and talk.
Thanks,
a little
Joey.
bit. All right, thanks, Mark.
I
Appreciate
it. Joey offering some perspective. Good to hear from Joey. Definitely. So, in no way, and please don't confuse this, do I think that these rankings are the gospel truth. they're accurate, they're close. They, it doesn't mean that, okay, Oklahoma State's at 1530 and Utah's at 1529. That's not etched in stone. That doesn't mean Utah's not been a better program all time. And then you have the all-time factor here. And it all depends on how much you value what happened in 1900. Some people say, hey, that's just as valid, just as meaningful what happened in 1900 as what happened last season. I don't personally agree with that. But these rankings are actually all uniform. The wins, the championships, everything in 1950 count just as much as today. Now, pre-1936, you could say to a certain extent, those wins and so forth don't count quite as much because the teams were then not ranked, and therefore the rankings are not reflected because there were no rankings. But there's something significant. There's a number of reasons why I think games and championships and all of that are more valid today. And that's, let me give an analogy that may be a little clumsy, but we'll go with it. Let's say we had a national chess league and we all just formed chess leagues in our neighborhoods. And therefore we just wanted to, and what I'm going to do while I spill out this just well-crafted analogy that just hit me, let me back this way. We know who's owned the. And so here's the analogy I'll go with, and you'll start to see the graphics pop up here in just a second. You won't have to see double mark and be nauseated. Is that let's say we started a chess league, a national chess league, and we all just started chess leagues in our various neighborhoods around the country, and we reported our results, and we kept it in a big database, big spreadsheet. And let's say we were all honest, so there was no questioning the results. The results were factual. Everybody was honest, but nobody had any idea who was playing whom. Let's say I gathered a bunch of 8-year-olds in my neighborhood to play chess against, and I was the mastermind of the 8-year-olds, and therefore I was, undefeated. Okay. Let's say word got around after 10 or 15 years that, okay, wait a minute. There are some people that aren't necessarily playing like competition in these chess leagues across the country. They're taking advantage of people who aren't necessarily the sharpest upstairs or are underage and not capable yet of challenging this. So, okay, we're going to make an age requirement. You have to be at least 18 years old to play in this chess league. Okay. All right. So then that eliminates a lot of questioning and doubt and a lot of skewed numbers. Okay. That's the first thing. Then after 15 or 20 more years, let's say it was found out that a lot of us, we were having conversations with the neighborhood and we were determining, okay, this dude's not the brightest, that dude's not the brightest. We'll bring him in the league so I can pound his head in. And wow, there's some folks that are really smart. I'm going to stay away from them, not even mention that we've got a chess league. Okay. Let's say it was determined after another 15 or 20 years, okay, you need to make this accessible to everyone that is eligible to now play in the chess league. Okay. And let's say after another 15 or 20 years, we continue to refine this and put it in categories that were meaningful and acceptable to everyone. Okay, that's pretty much what's happened in college football through the years, is that every 15, 20 years, there has been guardrails put on it that have made the results more and more valid. When Michigan was winning a national championship in 1901, playing Case and Carlisle and Albion and the like, how valid is that? Well, it's in the books. It counts. I count it. That's fine. All of that counts. No problem. That's fine. However, in context, in reality, it's not as valid. It just isn't. Let's also understand there is a certain percentage that's about 70% of the players in the NFL have what in common? Well, about 70% of the players in the NFL have what in common? They're black. Okay. For whatever reason, we can conjecture all day. It doesn't matter to this conversation. Black players are really good at football. And there were basically 0% playing college football in 1930 or 1940. And by 1970, the sport was basically integrated. Okay. Well, I posted the numbers here and I got all sorts of criticism and hate for posting all-time records or records since 1970. Oh, Mark, you just picked an arbitrary number out of nowhere. Why are you posting that? Well, first of all, it's a valid length of time. It's a substantial length of time in history. It goes back to 1970. That's 54 seasons ago. It's a pretty good chunk of time. That's just like you see right there, the 21st century. Is there anything magical about the 21st century? No, it's just a barometer. We are marking time. It's a century. Okay, we're looking at the 21st century there. That didn't weigh into my point system. It's just a discussion piece, just food for thought, just to be reviewed. Same thing with 1970. But with 1970, there's a key component there. There was not some year that just, boom, all of a sudden, desegregation occurred and there was fully integration in college football. But by 1970, that's a good marker for that, to properly account for that. And that's the main reason why I think 1970 is a valid year to go to look at that. So we do appreciate you being here, the Voice of College Football. Again, if you want to check out the full video, it's over on the main channel, the national channel. Please subscribe to the Big 12 channel. I will give it a going once, going twice, going three times for any call-ins. If anybody wants to call, the link is in the chat. Meanwhile, please subscribe to the Big 12 channel. Appreciate you being here. And just about every night of the week on the West Virginia channel, Joey has content. He's got live shows. They're fun. They're informative. They're a good time. So get engaged, get involved. Check out Joey's work on the Big 12 or on the West Virginia channel just about every night, Monday through Friday. We'll be doing the SEC over on, we'll figure it out. I don't know if I'm going to do it on the main channel or do that as well on the SEC channel. We shall see. We shall see. All right. Talking SEC football with all of you, looking over the all-time program rankings from the SEC. And that's coming up, of course, on Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, right here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you then.